All right, welcome back to another video. This one is 8th grade 4.3. So write 8th 4.3 there up at the top. And in this one, you're going to learn about graphing proportional relationships. So your learning intention is to be able to graph proportional relationships. You'll know you're successful when you can graph an equation that represents a proportional relationship, when you can write an equation that represents a proportional relationship, and when you can use graphs to compare proportional relationships. Okay, so proportional relationships are when two quantities, x and y, are proportional. The relationship can be represented by the equation y equals mx, where m is your constant of proportionality, which we also, if you remember from some of the stuff we learned in our 7th grade book, constant of proportionality is also your slope, which is also your rate of change. So this is a very versatile number. So here's a graph of y equals mx, and it's a line with a slope of m that passes through the origin. Okay, so here's what that looks like, and let's see how we can make this work. Graphing a proportional relationship. So the cost y in dollars for x ounces of frozen yogurt is represented by y equals 0.5x. Graph the equation and interpret the slope. So there's two methods that we could use here. We could either make a table of values, or we can use the slope. Okay, so first I'm going to tell you that when you plot the ordered pairs and draw a line through the points, because negative values of x do not make sense in this context, we're going to graph in the first quadrant only. So because we're talking about how much money does it cost per certain amount of ounces in frozen yogurt, it obviously wouldn't make sense if we had negative ounces of yogurt, right? So it's just going to end up being in the top portion of your graph. So first, with the table, we had the equation y equals 0.5x, which is y equals mx. So I'm going to take that equation and place it here. I want to be able to solve for y. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose a random number for x. Just not going to be negative, because remember we said that wouldn't make sense in this scenario. So first I'm going to start with 0. So I'm going to put in my 0 for x here in this equation. So when I multiply 0.5 by 0, well, we know anything multiplied by 0 becomes 0, right? So then if I do 0.5 times 0, it's 0. So y now equals 0. So here's my points, 0, 0. So then I could go here to my graph and make a point 0, 0, because I know that would work. Then I need a few more points, because I'm trying to make sure that I have this line as best as I can. So I have y equals 0.5x. Let's see, let's put 1 in for x this time. Well, 0.5 times 1 is 0.5. So that means y equals 0.5. So I will put x equals 1 and y is 0.5. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go 1 for my x and up to 0.5 for my y and plot my point. I'm going to do it 2 more. So I'm going to put in 2 for x. Well, I know 0.5 times 2 is 1. So y equals 1. So my new points to plot are my x, which is 2, which made my y 1. So I'm going to go over 2 for my x and up 1 for my y and plot my point. Now let's put in 3 for x. So if 3 times 0.5 equals 1.5, that means my points are 3 and 1.5. So I'm going to go over 3 on my x-axis, and then I'm going to go up 1.5, and that will be where I plot my point. Okay, so that's what you can do if you are making tables of values. And so the other option here is just to use the slope. So the equation shows us that the slope m is 0.5. So that means that the graph passes through 0, 0, and 1 and 0.5. Because when I have a slope, if it's 0.5, let's think of that as a fraction. That's what's going to really help us to be able to figure out what we're going to do. So 0.5 over 1, Or we could have said even 1 over 2, which would have still got us the same answer. See, so we go, so remember, actually you don't know this, but it is x, or y over x is how we find slope. So if our x is 1 and then our slope is 0.5, that's where we would plot it. So you can use the slope to plot the points, or you can just make your table. Let's see what's on the back here. All right. The distance y in miles that your friend rides his mountain bike is proportional to the time in hours that he rides. Your friend rides his bike 25 miles in hours. That should be 25. So this should say his mountain bike is proportional to the time x in hours that he rides. Your friend rides his bike 25 miles in 5 hours. So write an equation that represents the situation. Substitute the values given into the equation of a proportional relationship to find the slope of the line, y equals mx. All right. So if I am looking to figure out what is y equals mx, I'm going to put my y and my x in for this equation. So it says y is in miles, which was my 25. And x is in hours, which is my 5. So I'm going to put 25 in for y. We don't know our m. And then I'm going to put 5 in for x. So now I know that I need to figure out what my m is. Well, 5, or m times 5, I need to divide to get m by itself. So 25 divided by 5 is 5 equals m. That's not where you end. Now you need to put in the 5 into the equation for m and leave it like that. So now it's going to be y equals 5x. Why do we do that? Because when we recreate this equation with the slope in it, now I can use this equation that we have here to solve this next problem. Okay, so after you put in your points to find your slope, rewrite the equation to be y equals whatever your slope is times x. Because now we'll use it here. So at this rate, how many hours will it take your friend to ride his bike 225 miles? Well, we know hours was x, and we know miles is y. So if I have 225 miles, now I can use this equation and put the 225 in for y. I already have my slope, and I'm solving for x, which was the hours. So to solve for x, I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides to get x by itself. 225 divided by 5 is 45. So 45 equals x. Okay, so the cost y in dollars to rent an off-road vehicle is proportional to the time x in hours that you rent it. It costs you $48 to rent the off-road vehicle for 3 hours. So you need to write an equation that represents the situation. So you're going to do the same thing that I did here. You're going to put in your y and your x, solve for your slope, then put the answer you get for slope back into the equation. And this is what you want to have by the time you leave this problem on A. So then you're going to graph the equation and interpret the slope. So you choose, am I going to graph it using the slope, or am I going to create a table? And then you're going to answer, how much does it cost to rent the off-road vehicle for 5 hours? So then we're going to take whatever the equation is that you created in A, you're going to add the 5 hours into the equation, which would be your x. So you're going to put the 5 in for x to solve the equation for C. Okay? Go ahead and try that. Let me know if you have any questions.